You're listening to the Dream and Achieve Project, and I am your host, Brent.dreamachievefit. Funny thing happened to me on my way to true happiness and success as a fitness trainer and entrepreneur. I made every mistake in the book. But there's one thing that sets me apart. I focus on goals in front of me, charging ahead, and never looking back. This podcast will help you fight through the struggles life hands you so you're equipped to persevere. I'll introduce you to leaders and entrepreneurs who have made their dreams come true and are willing to share their secrets to true success and happiness. Let's go! I'm super excited today. I got Mr. Peter Taunton. I have been training him for a few years now. He's the one that helped me out get my job as a personal trainer, which I have been doing for 11 years now. So welcome him. Peter, if you want to give him a little information on who you are, to kind of help out the listeners kind of see, what you're all about.
No problem. So for those of you that don't know me, I've been a serial entrepreneur for about 35 years, all 35 years back in the health and wellness fitness space. And the last 15 years, I started a franchise concept called Snap Fitness. And since then, we've grown that to about 2,500 locations in 26 countries over the last 15 years. And been extremely successful and super rewarding as well. And in that 15-year period, when the economy got a little bit soft in 2009, we diversified and created a couple of other concepts and bought into a concept that we've since grown and exploded. And I think altogether today, in 15 years, we've amassed about 6,000 locations or licenses in about 30 countries. So it's a big operation, a lot of fun, and extremely rewarding.
What were you doing before you started, your self-employment, your business?
Boy, good question.
Going back in the day.
Right, for the day, for sure. When I was, I was going to college just like everyone else, and I don't recommend this path for everyone, but for me it worked. I was the youngest of 7 kids and grew up middle class. I was going to college at St. Cloud State, and my parents they subscribed to the logic of if you're going to go to school, you pay for your own college. So I was heavily vested into student loans and things. And one morning I got up, I remember the day just like it was yesterday. I was sitting with my twin brother having breakfast and a junior in college studying business statistics, and I was about $10,000 in debt, which to me was a mountain I felt like I couldn't climb. Yeah. And I said, "Screw it, I quit." And my twin brother says, "What do you mean you quit?" I said, "I'm quitting college." I literally quit that morning, and he quit. He quit 2 minutes later. He said, "I quit too," and he and I.
Was plan when you quit?
Well, at the time I was a professional racquetball player, so I was flying around the country playing racquetball, and I just knew this. I knew I always wanted to be my own man. I knew I always wanted to be my own boss. I didn't know quite what that meant, other than that I knew it was going to be hard work and a long journey, but I knew that I was up for the challenge. Yeah. And God seems to always open doors for me, and He opened a door. I had an opportunity to run a failing health club. And they paid me $16,000 a year, and they told me, "Look, Peter, if you can turn this club around, we'll let you buy us out with the profits that it generates." And that was the opportunity I needed. At the time, I was living in Orlando, Florida. I moved back up to Minnesota and took this club over, and that was the catalyst for me getting in the fitness space, because I had nothing, but I had the heart of a lion, and I was not afraid of hard work, and I just dug in. I remember my first days at that business. One thing that I felt like I always knew what the product should look and feel like. What is the consumer looking for? Yeah. And when I walked into this club for the first day and saw how tired and dilapidated it was, I saw a staff that didn't care. They were not engaged. And literally the first couple of days I was at work, I think I fired half the staff, only because they failed to show up. And that's something I talk about today in business. You know what? Not only in business, but your personal life. How do you want to show up every day? And it matters, right?
Yeah.
I've been blessed to be able to do something I've loved my entire life. And anyway, a long answer to your short question. That's how I got into the space. I had an opportunity, and when you start with nothing, you're fearless. I always once I had enough equity in that first club, I went to a bank and got a loan against my equity and opened another club. Now I had 2 clubs paying off 1 loan. As soon as I had that loan cut in half, I went back to that same bank and said, I'd like another loan. I want to build another club. I did that 7 times, and I did it 7 times over a 20-year period. So this is a lesson for all of you. You know what? There's no get-rich-quick schemes out there. You got to, you know what? As long as you're moving the ball down the field, don't get so caught up in the pace of how you're moving it. Yep. But if you're moving it in the right direction, if it's up and to the right, don't be afraid. Dig your heels in and work hard.
Yeah, for sure. No, going back to, you firing those people, a lot of people go through life living it like a zombie, I call them. Like they're just doing the same things over and over every day, the same drive, the same 9-hour shift. There's a huge saying out there right now where it doesn't matter how much time you're putting in, it matters what you're doing with that time that you're putting in. I don't care if you're working 16 hours a day, there might be someone else out there putting in 8 hours and killing it more than your 16 hours, So like you said, you got to show up, you got to prove that you're worth it and you can do it and, go from there.
No, it's exactly right. It's not there's no easy way out for sure. It's hard work.
So, I mean, you kind of answered it a little bit, but what made you start Snap Fitness? You started that other fitness company, or you took it over. What made you start Snap Fitness?
When I had the business, I had the America's Fitness Centers for 20 years, and I sold them to some entrepreneurs. And one of the guys that worked for me, and he had been with me for probably 10 years, and when I sold the company, I set up a great compensation plan for him. And about 6 months after I sold the company, he called me and says, "Hey, Peter, I just don't like the people who you sold it to. I'm going to be honest with you. The culture's changed. They don't have the same fire in their belly." It was just a different climate, different environment. And he said, "Would you mind building a club for me? And then I'll run it for you. I know you're not interested in getting back in and running the day-to-day, but would you consider it?" I said no to him 3 or 4 times. And then one day I said, well, you know what? I got thinking about it. And I said, what if I built a club, but I didn't have racquetball courts and swimming pools and aerobic studios? And pretty soon this club that was 40,000 square feet was literally, 3,000 to 4,000 square feet with 2 employees instead of 50.
Yep.
So the economics work. So that's what got me into it. And, I built one club and honestly, I sold enough memberships in 90 days to cash flow that club for the year. And that was in a large market. Then I built one in a mid-sized market. Same thing, 90 days, I sold enough memberships to cash flow it for the year. And then the third location, which was in a little town of 3,500 people, built it, same result. So the unit level economics work. The rent in the small town was considerably less than in the urban market. Yeah. But I needed the same amount of memberships to break even. And a good rule of thumb I always tell entrepreneurs out there, look, it's not always what you take in the front door, it's what you take out the back door. So these clubs, they ran at the same profit margin. And it was at that time that I knew I had a tiger by the tail.
Yeah. You kind of found a niche, there wasn't anything out there right then as far as like a 24/7 access card gym. Is that kind of true?
Yeah. I wanted to, that product had been in the hotel space for years.
Okay.
All I did was take it out of the hotel space and put it in the doorsteps of families across America.
Gotcha.
Now, one of the things I wanted to do, though, I wanted to make sure it was 24-hour. The biggest change that I had with my concept is 24-hour access. There was a lot of clubs out there that were still 24-hour access, but I said no contract. And that really set me apart. And for those of us out there that want to try something and launch something, I think one of the first things you have to do is look at how can you be different? What's going to be my go-to-market battle cry that makes me different? Because let's face it, anyone can rent a space, throw equipment in there, and call it a gym. Yep. But at the time, 15 years ago, when I said, look, I'm going to do that, but no contract, which means you come in, you pay your first month's dues, and you know what? If I don't deliver on my promise, you just quit.
Yep.
And that resonated with the general public because they said, you know what? For once, somebody's stepping up and giving us a product that's fair to us. You know what? I'm sick of being shackled to some 12-month contract. When I go to the club, it's dirty and the equipment doesn't work.
For sure.
Yeah, so it worked. It worked. And did I know that I was going to have 2,500 locations and 15 years later? No, I didn't. But I knew that I designed something that was scalable. That if God willing, if I was able to execute on my vision that it had potential to be something very big.
Yeah. I got a good question for you. I like to ask this to all the business owners and entrepreneurs. How much fear went into, starting your own thing? Obviously, everyone has fear. They might not say they do, but, there's fear involved with taking that leap, taking that jump to do it.
Well, you know what? Fear and paranoia work hand in hand, right? And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. Fear to the point where it's polarizing is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And most people that have the fear is the fear to fail. And if you have fear to fail, then you just got to get your head around that, because failing is part of winning. You can't win without failing, period. And you can't be afraid of it. So, but for me, I always felt like, and it worked for me playing racquetball too, that, when I played racquetball, I was in the court at least 5-6 days a week for at least 2 hours a day. And the reason I did is because I felt like if I wasn't in the court, the other pros were going to be in the court. So I always felt like I had to have that edge. And just like in business, you know what? You got to understand, you better know what you're doing. And more importantly, you better know what your competition's doing too.
Yep, exactly. So I know you've owned more than one business. Would you recommend that to people to kind of branch out, or would you say, hey, stick to your thing that you're good at and, just go with that? Depends on the person, probably, huh?
No, honestly, starting, I would stick to what's your core competency, and I did that. Now there's a time. Stick to your core competency. Don't try to be everything to everyone. That's an important point.
Yeah.
So know what you're good at and own it. Number one. The second piece is, after you've grown it, it's a good thing to be diversified, but don't bet the farm on it. Diversification in business is a good thing. Diversification in your personal finances is a good thing. In fact, I'd say it's a must. You hear the old cliche, don't have all your eggs in one basket. Well, it's true. Don't do it. Don't have all your eggs in one basket. So hey, can you pause it for 1 second? I got my IT guy here. Can you pause it for 1 second? Okay.
All right, good. Kind of going back to that last question, about the businesses, would you stick to the one you're really good at, or branch out and do it that way?
So it's a great question, and for any entrepreneur going through a process, and I look at a lot of different businesses, which I enjoy doing today, and every founder and entrepreneur that I meet, I ask them, look, what's your strategy to get into business? And then I hear about it, I sit back and I listen. And before I leave the conversation, I say, what's your exit strategy? Because your exit strategy is equally as important to how you get into the business. If you're a one-man wrecking crew and the only time you make money is when you're on site working, that's a great business, because when you sell the business, you're not going to get favor for that, because you are the business, right?
So exit strategy meaning selling the business ultimately.
You got it. Otherwise, unless your strategy is, I'm going to do this till the day I die, which is not a strategy, right? Yeah. So, and I help people around that to try to create redundancies and systems and process to get to a place where they have people that are employed by them that are helping to drive the business, which is important. So the diversification is key. Stick to your core competency early on, but then obviously segue into other things. My recommendation would be, don't go too far off the rails in terms of what else you want to diversify in, because now you're getting into something that's completely foreign to you and very high risk. Yeah. The other rule of thumb with your investable capital, making money is hard to do. My own personal threshold is, I don't invest more than 10% of my net worth into any business outside of the core business that I'm running. Okay? 10%. So when I hear people that are blessed, they knock it out of the park, they make 10, 20, 30 million and more, and they've got that sitting in their bank account, and then I hear 10 years later, 5 years later, that they're back working, they're broke because they invested 5 million here, 4 million there. And every time someone comes to you with a business plan, it's always up and to the right. Nobody tells you how a business plan is going to fail. All they tell you about is how much you're going to make. Yeah. And whenever you're looking at businesses like that, you better be able to live with the downside, because the downside should be the basis of if you do that business or not.
that reminds me of like NFL players or pro basketball players that make a crap ton of money, and then when they're out of the league, you know, they blow it all on, you know, whatever it is, gambling, whatever. You know, it's kind of that same concept.
Isn't it amazing that I don't care if it's sports or business. The more money you have, the more friends you have.
Yep.
And when the money dries up, when the money dries up, the friends dry up too.
Yeah. So I know, you know, through Snap Fitness and things like that, you found a bunch of influencers, you know, Thomas Rhett, you know, Tim McGraw, things like that. How do you approach these people? How do you, you know, get them on board with your team?
Actually, they approached me.
Okay.
Actually, so Thomas, at the time that we engaged with Thomas, he was a aspiring country artist.
Yep.
Now we didn't know that 2 years later he was going to be the country music artist of the year.
Yeah.
Okay, we know that clearly.
Yep.
So we look a hell of a lot smarter than we actually were. Thomas, God bless him, working hard and deserves all the good fortune he's received. Yeah. Tim McGraw's team, they approached us to help design a concept for him. Tim's aside from being Tim and Faith, aside from being great people and very generous and just good-hearted people. He's a sharp guy, and he's passionate about what he does. He gets up every day with fire in his belly. He works out. He's a good family man. And anyway, he wanted to take that to the people of Nashville and create a concept that could resonate with the people there. So he reached out to us to do that, say, can you help me design something? And we did. And we didn't go too far off the grid. We gave him a group fitness functional training with heart rate-based training incorporated into it. We got some of the best instructors in Nashville. The club kicks ass. The color palette looks fantastic. It's well received. We just opened it 2-3 weeks ago. I think we're hovering around 150 members, which has got to be darn close to what its break even is. So we're thrilled, and Tim is thrilled, and we're happy to be part of it.
You think eventually that'll be another one that kind of branches out, or?
I don't know that's a franchisable concept because it's so specialized, right? Yeah. And the more technical you make a concept, the harder it is to franchise it. So yeah. I see that product today. I mean, never say never, because that product will probably evolve over time, like most do.
Yeah.
I could very easily see us doing 2 or 3 locations in Nashville and being the group fitness functional training, unbelievable community and culture within our 4 walls that we're really, it's about nutrition. As you know, abs are made in the kitchen, right? It's
80% of it's in the kitchen.
You got it. So we give it to people straight. Look, we love that they come in and work out, and your heart rate doesn't lie. So yep. Giving them a heart rate monitor, we know we push them hard, we get results, and that's what matters.
Yeah, that's great. That's the best way to do it. So that's good. I know growing up, did you have any mentors, or did you go to any books when you're trying to, work on your self-development, things like that? What would you recommend as far as maybe some books, or, if you had someone mentor you?
Well, yeah, my biggest mentor was, without question, my father, and only because he was a self-made man. And one thing that I loved about my dad was his compassion for others, that he had a grocery store in a small town that we grew up in, and he was just very generous with his time, very generous with his employees, and very generous for the underdog. And I remember one time walking by my dad's office. I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and my dad was sitting there, and there was a gentleman sitting across from him. They're facing each other, and my dad had a very stern look on his face. And the guy got up and left. Probably 10 minutes later, I walked into my dad's office and said, "Dad, what happened? What was that all about?" And he was telling me that this guy had stole a bunch of steaks. And I said, "Oh, yeah, what did you do?" And Dad says, "I gave him the steaks," right? So I love the fact that my dad always tries to find the good in people. Yeah. Didn't call the police, sent the man home with steaks, and probably gave him a godly lesson, which is a great thing to do. So my dad, I love the fact that he was a hardworking man too. There was no job he didn't do. You'd see him carrying out groceries. You'd see him at the checkout stand. You'd see him stocking shelves. You'd see him greeting people when they come into the store. I mean, he was a man of many faces, but there was no job he wouldn't do. And I carried that with me for even when I started Snap Fitness. For the first 50 to 70 stores, I was hanging TVs. I was placing equipment, laying carpet. I wanted to make sure that every club looked the same because I knew if I was going to have a franchise concept, the product needed to be consistent. And the only way I was going to get consistency was for me on top of it.
Yeah. So ultimately, your father was a huge inspiration for you. And, basically what you want to do in business is serve or provide a good product that's going to help someone. And then obviously the money's going to come to you. That's what I've noticed with personal training, getting people to transform their bodies. The word spreads, the loyalty spreads, and then I just start getting business. I don't even have to market really, It's kind of find something that you can serve and help people, and things will come back full circle. Would you agree with that?
You know what, Brent? You know what you're really good at? You're really good at asserting yourself. Some trainers out there, the only time they assert themselves or give up any knowledge is when they're on the clock. And you make a great point of when I see you in the gym, you make a point to go up and communicate with people. If you see someone training abs, you'll say, hey, here's another ab movement that I do that really works. And that resonates. And so at the end of the day, winning as a trainer, it's delivering on a promise. And it's not just, look, I'm going to sit here and be a glorified counter, which kills me when I see trainers that do that.
I hate it.
Right. Get in the game, right? Get in the game. Talk to me about nutrition. Talk to me about effort, right? If I'm not putting forth enough effort, well, you better tell me that I need to turn it up 30 clicks, right? Because I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's why I can spot a great trainer and an average trainer and a poor trainer within 10 minutes of hanging out with them, because some get it, some think they get it, and some flat out don't get it.
For sure. Well, to kind of leave this episode in closing, what would you give as far as advice for entrepreneurs that want to start their own thing?
Well, I start by saying, you know what, find something, forget about money first. Put yourself in a position that if it didn't matter what it paid, taking money, putting it aside, what is the one thing that you love to do? That when you get up in the morning, it's one of the first things you think about, that where it would not feel like going to work. And I'm tell you what, it matters, because starting a business or getting into business, it's hard work. It's hard work. It's gut-wrenching at times. It's stressful. So the first thing I would tell you to do is find something that you're going to love, that you love to do. If you don't like communicating with people, by all means, don't get in the people business, right? Yeah. Don't get in the service business.
Yeah.
So find something that you can be passionate about, number one. Number two, don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And you know the hardest part with people, some people that have done well in their careers, and then they're going to transition and go to another career. And I'm probably living proof of it, right? I've been in the health and wellness space for 35 years.
Yeah.
So I have to catch myself periodically saying, hey, Peter, don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And because I feel like my whole identity is centered around driving successful businesses, right? That's a slippery slope, right? Because pretty soon you're afraid to do anything. You're afraid to jump off because you're afraid that you're going to fail, and you're going to afraid that that's going to affect your identity, which is that here's a businessman that all he does is create successful businesses. Yeah. Now, granted, there's some underlying fundamentals that certainly are part of that success, that transition and transcend to all different kinds of businesses that I've seen. But fundamentally, don't be afraid to fail, because honest to God, Brett, you can't win if you don't lose a few times.
Yeah, for sure. There's no straight road to your goals.
There's not. And you know what? When you skin your knees a little bit, learn from it, learn fast, get up, brush yourself off, and go at it with the same fire in your belly as you started.
Yeah, man. That's good stuff. Man, enjoy that weather, because here I just got done shoveling for an hour, about a foot of snow.
I feel for you guys up there. I think you guys have had about 18 or 20 inches in the last couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, it's been bad, and it's been cold. And, I took the roof shovel to it yesterday, and then it snowed again. And I'm like, here we go again.
Man, I had some pretty good timing coming down here to Miami.
Don't rub it in, man.
The coldest day in 30 years, I missed that.
Oh, yeah, it was like -50.
I can't imagine. No, yeah. Not even this Midwestern country boy like me can relate to that.
That was bad, man. Well, all righty, man. I appreciate you doing this, and we'll stay in touch. Hopefully, if you come back, we get some training sessions in, and yeah.
Sure.
Cool.
Hey, I'm happy to do this for you anytime. Take care, my brother, and congrats on all your success.
All right, thank you, man.
Take care. Cheers.